screen. There you are in the screen. All right. Hey, Cynthia Sue Larson, welcome to the program.
Awesome. Good to be here, Daniel.
All right. Hey. I'm gonna break some interesting news for you. I think that we're in the dawn. I'm in the absolute dawn of a new quantum age, and Cynthia, I think it presents a radical new paradigm that maybe we're not in our body or our situation, but maybe we're pure energy. These just thoughts came to me. Am I going anywhere with this? Is it ringing true?
Sounds spot on, Daniel. I couldn't agree more heartily. I totally agree.
since of course I got it from your website there in your bio. But hey, welcome. You know, the one thing that the Edge viewers like to hear about and talk about is quantum, the quantum universe and holographic multiverse and parallel universes and the Mandela Effect. And so it's very interesting to them. They're going to be sending in questions during the show, and so we'll see where that goes. But Cynthia Sue, how did you get involved? What drew you to this form of interesting topic?
Well, this topic pretty much came to me in the sense that I started noticing there were shifts in reality occurring, and I was not caught up in the drugs. I live in Berkeley, California, so I realized it was a hotbed of all sorts of things, but I didn't do all sorts of things here. So when I start noticing that things, people, buildings, and so forth are appearing, disappearing, transporting, transforming, then I know something big is going on. I did study physics at UC Berkeley, and it started occurring to me that a lot of people are probably witnessing this also, but might be afraid to talk about it, or just embarrassed, or they might be doubting themselves. So it seemed like this was back in the 1990s. I thought it's time to put together a website to share experiences, firsthand experiences from people around the world who are from all walks of life. So that way people would be encouraged to step forward and share what's happening with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like the world is much larger. There's a lot more activity going on a whole lot of different levels. And the level that we're at, that the system wants us to inhabit completely, it isn't very exciting for one thing, but it feels like somebody's deceiving us some way. I mean, it's sort of like children in the beginning. They see people and various things until the adults talk them out of it and say, no, you didn't see anybody. There's nobody really there. Well, maybe there was somebody there. I don't know.
Right. So this gets into consensus collective consciousness and the way that, of course, we'd like things to be orderly. We want things to be adhering to some degree of material realism because we're comfortable with it, frankly. But what's happening is this quantum age you're speaking of that you brought up right from the start, love it. When we bring that up, what does that really mean? It means that consciousness might be the root foundational basis for all of reality. So all the physical things that we think are so very real are actually they're epiphenomenal. They are coming from consciousness, in other words.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people, including myself, feel like there is an external force that I don't want to say interferes with, but maybe you could say interferes in some cases, interferes with or directs certain things to happen. Do you ever get that feeling?
Well, I get a feeling of higher levels of self. It's like I get guidance, I get nudges. Sometimes I'll be trying to go one way and I'll get the idea like, wow, things really don't want me to go that way. It's kind of like everything seems to be stopping that. Such as when I wanted to resist getting into this line of work that I'm doing now. Because I was thinking I'd just go back to the project management activities that are so normal and respected and so forth. And when I started trying to do that, I just felt like my whole body was getting ill with some mysterious ailment that would possibly have no cure. So that kind of guidance, to me, it seems like it's not what my egoic self thought was the right thing for me, but clearly there's some level of myself that really is strongly encouraging me to be courageous, to be usually it involves being more courageous, more empathic and compassionate, and more hopeful. Just all these higher level qualities. So that seems very clear then when I feel like, okay, I need to be a bigger person, be more courageous, and do something kind of that feels like I'm jumping out into thin air, out into space to say, for example, that I'm doing this work with reality shifts. That
Reality
I'm,
shift. That's interesting. And going out in space. When you said that, it triggered a biblical reminder to me where Jesus was walking on the water and he called Peter out. And so, I mean, you talk about stepping out. I mean, sometimes we have step out in our mind, or maybe we want to step out. When we're talking about stepping out, where do I go to this restaurant or go to that one? I'm going to step out. But how about stepping out on water? I mean, sometimes we have to do bigger steps than that. But let me welcome a few additional people in our live chat. Southern Boy, Peter from Australia, Paul Christopher, Life Station Express have all joined us in the live chat. And for those in the live chat, if you have a question for Cynthia, just put them in the live chat, and our moderator Jade will send them over here to us. So, all right. So we have your book in the background there, Quantum Jump. So, can you make quantum steps, or is it always going to be a jump?
well, you can think of it either way. I love baby steps myself. So I'm the kind of person that would prefer to play it really safe, and I double check everything. So it's kind of ironic that I'm involved in this whole field of really literally jumping into a whole new reality is what we're talking about. I prefer to go in tiny little baby steps. Just because I like things to be somewhat have a modicum of connectivity so that I can get my bearings, so that I can feel like I still have familiarity with my surroundings and what I'm doing. So I prefer the baby steps personally. So of course, yeah, you can do that.
We had a guest on the program a couple of years ago, and it was talking about living your life dream. And she said, and it was obviously correct, said, no matter what step you take, if you're stepping toward your goal, that's great, and you'll get there. And that say like you're looking for a job, maybe you make a phone call one day, just a phone call, or maybe you make a note somewhere, something you thought of. She counts those and said over time, then you'll find that these steps will bring you to where you're headed. But I also thought that our brain puts up a defense for us so that our heart. We don't follow our heart. Our heart is more loving and giving and outspoken and outreaching, but our mind puts up a defensive wall. Saying, wait a minute, wait, don't do that. Wait. So we could technically, Cynthia, create a lifetime of small steps and never get to the jump part, never even get to the accumulation of a single jump, because our mind's saying, okay, you can make that call, but you can't go down there because you could be embarrassed and they don't like your clothes or whatever. So, so your mind could actually be part of a defense stopping us from advancing.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. When I hit those points, and I do hit those points, then I get kind of pushed out of the nest by my high self and my guides. What I mean by that is, like, I think the most embarrassing thing I've done so far in the last 20 years is coming out and saying, okay, I will do spiritual life coaching. And I didn't really want to do that. I kept telling my angels, yeah, I'll get to it. And I was making the baby steps, and not really doing anything. It was massive procrastination, basically. Kind of like, I'd rather be an author. I'd rather do anything rather than admit to this. But you know what happened is 3 women that I don't know, and that turned out they'd never seen my website either. They all phoned my unlisted phone number, called me when I was able to pick up the phone, and then they said, can you talk to my angels? And so, boom, I was like exposed. It's like, yes. And it was just the trippiest thing. I would ask, well, how did you get my phone number? And they said my angels gave it to me. Okay, so that's kind of wild. But it in my life, that's the kind of nudges I get, because when I feel like, because I will be a little bit hesitant sometimes, because I like the baby steps. I'm comfortable there, because I feel like, okay, I know this part. Going to the next level, that could be scary. So when I get to the next level points, I get a push usually from my high self. I think we all do. I don't think it's just me. It may not be like that, but I think at some point when there's a level of yourself that knows it's time to make the bigger step, like you've been tinkering around for long enough.
Time to get out of ship like Peter did.
Yeah.
So, well, what's the difference between moving into sort of another type of universe and feeling that you are in another universe maybe, and say deja vu? Are these connected? Is deja vu telling you that you've made a jump?
Yeah, deja vu can sometimes connect you with these multiple possible realities that we're all connected to at that level of consciousness that we truly are. So when you're having a deja vu experience or a future memory experience, these are different things, but they're very interrelated. Future memory would be it's when you have a memory and it's so real, you can't tell it's not a memory. And it's happened to me, and it's a little bit confusing because then I'll think, but this hasn't happened. And then I'll realize, oh, that's a future memory. So that's similar to a deja vu. For me personally, the deja vu is where I've usually dreamt or daydreamed something, and now I'm living that exact sequence of events just that I dreamt previously. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of, it's almost like I've been selecting, flipping through pages of a catalog, choosing that. I like that moment. Let's do that one. And then I'm living it like, whoa, this is crazy. It's like I've done this before. That's the
Mm-hmm.
deja vu.
Mm.
And the future memory has a totally different feeling. And then there are also adjacent reality feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start tuning in all these different ways of playing with these different so-called timelines,
Mm-hmm.
if you will.
Well, maybe the Moody Blues was prophetic because they had an album called Days of Futures Past, I believe, and that always intrigued me right there. I was like, man, music going to bring us somewhere finally, rather than just a little beat ditty to sing along with. Man, sometimes things are revealed in the strangest places, and we can get information. You know, if people talk to each other long enough, both people will get something of value. This program tries to bring people various viewpoints to the show because, man, the world needs to communicate, and there's a lot less communication. It reminds me of the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, where Matthew McConaughey said, as a priest, he said, "Here we are in this technologically advanced world." Paraphrasing. But has it drawn us closer together? No, we're actually further apart. So, you know, and now in this particular case, we're using technology to bring us together here to have a program, and then people in live chat are coming in. So I see that as a useful purpose. But in general, oh, when somebody called you up, I said most people, if they call you up and they didn't know your numbers, because you just been doxxed. So hopefully you hopefully you weren't doxxed, and it was more, you know, magical
Yeah.
than.
Yeah, I've had it's weird when those things happen, then I've just been meditating. It's happened more than just those times. It's also I've been able to help people that were having Kundalini crises. And I guess I'm the Kundalini hotline, or one
Mm,
of many probably. And these are people who might spontaneously combust. But what happens in those cases is I get an inspiration, go sit by the phone, meditate. And so I do that. And then when I'm just in this perfect zone, the phone rings and I just know pick it up. So I pick it up. And then the person on the other end is they don't even say hi because they're having a
mm,
crisis. And they just
mm.
say, everything feels really weird. I'm like, okay, let me just see that with you. And I just work with their energy with them. And it's happened more than once. So it's
Can
happened several times.
Cynthia, can a person survive spontaneous combustion?
I think if you get help, I think what's really interesting is it looks like there may be such a thing as quantum immortality through quantum jumping.
Hmm.
That means you can be imminently about to get run over by a truck. You can be about ready to fall out of an airplane. It doesn't matter. Maybe they botch a surgery. It doesn't matter what's about to happen. It's irrelevant of circumstance. All of these things you can survive through this
Hmm.
quantum jumping. Yes,
Hmm.
all of it, and also spontaneous human combustion. All of it.
So
Yeah.
if you're getting ready to catch on fire, you need to do a jump right then.
Well, I think most people would. I know some people set themselves on fire, which I don't recommend, but for protests and so forth. But yeah, but if
Yeah.
you're about one that's most common that I hear about is the oncoming vehicular accident where someone's about to get in a head-on collision with, for example, an 18-wheeler vehicle. And they just have moments and they just feel like that's it, we're done for. The
Hmm.
next thing they know, they're on the other side of the vehicle and it was in a tunnel or a narrow passageway. There's no room for the two vehicles to pass each other. Then the next thing you know, they're just like they've quantum
Hmm.
tunneled through one another.
Man, I tell you what, I must have been in one of those quantum tunnels. I have been on a road. There is no way that my truck should not have smashed a mirror of the other truck or vice versa. And so I'm going to ask that in the live chat. people in the live chat, have you been on a lonely road somewhere and like maybe a single lane and you're going and you know you should have smashed into them, but you didn't? Just put a quick yes or no in the live chat. And speaking of the live chat and taking a little audio poll there, Cynthia, we have two polls on the website regarding to tonight's topic. The first one is the Mandela Effect real? The answers can be absolutely, no way, looking for proof. Yeah, and the earth is flat. We are in the Truman Show, and it's only disinfo. Second poll that people can take while they're watching the program: do we live in a holographic universe? And the answer is there. No, just a regular universe. Of course we do. I've been to other universes. Only in my mind they're hiding it, or I'm thirsty. Right now I'm thirsty. I'm going to drink what I got here. So let me just see what our poll results are so far. See if we got anything. All right, the Mandela Effect. We got 58% respondents. Cynthia say it's absolutely real. So we'll leave it at that and down from there. And let's go check the other poll here. Do we live in a holographic universe? Now, we got 37% say, nah, just a regular old run-of-the-mill universe. Was the Truman Show trying to tell us something?
I think so, because it's indicating maybe not literal truth. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not the kind of person that would say, oh my gosh, yes, we're all being watched. I mean, there are, of course, I'm going to leave that part of the topic out. So the Truman Show is, for those who haven't seen it, stars Jim Carrey, the actor, and he thinks that he's just living his regular life. And then come to find out in the course of the film, I don't want to spoil it too much, I think most people have seen it, he starts noticing, wait a minute, something's really weird. It's kind of like everything is geared to be responding and reacting to me. And then I really don't want to give too many spoilers away. Mm-hmm. So to the degree that we live in a subjective reality, yes, I'd say absolutely yes. And that means every single one of us can be having a unique set of experiences unique to ourselves. So we might think and assume that there's an objective out there, agreed upon, one total, material, real reality. Mm-hmm. That's not what the most recent current physics experiments are showing us. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that that's starting to happen, that we're starting to see some actual laboratory results that are backing up the fact that you can have totally subjective, different observations at the same place and same time mm-hmm. in an experimental apparatus with the double slit experiment.
Well, now that's an interesting point you bring up there, because in jurisprudence, in lawsuits and such, you can have multiple witnesses of the same event seeing different things. Is it because in some cases where there's not nefarious things going on, is it possible that in fact people did see a different event?
I would say yes. So I would be the kind of expert witness that would come in and say yes. And we have physics to back that up, which is kind of weird. And that's why I mentioned in this book, Quantum Jumps, that it's about once we recognize what this means, what the quantum age and quantum logic and the quantum paradigm actually mean in terms of medicine and law, it's going to change everything, because it's no longer a case of true or false and black and white. We're going to start seeing exactly what you're describing, that these witnesses are literally telling us about different realities that they experienced, and they're all equally viable. It's kind of like improv acting, where we're taught to say yes and. You're supposed to be polite and respectful. Mm-hmm. So no matter what crazy thing someone just said to you, like someone just told me that I'm the pie maker and where's my apple pie, and that wasn't what I meant to be doing, but now I need to serve the pie and then continue doing whatever else I was doing. And I think that's a lot like what life really is. And we just haven't, I think we're catching on to it.
It's talking about sort of being in a play, in a Truman Show-esque type situation. It reminded me of Kamala Harris when she did a little scene and she had these children there, and for most of us we're like, oh, look at the little children talking with Kamala Harris, but it turned out they were actors. I'm thinking, man, well, I'm serious, they were actors, and nobody had to answer to that, and what a setup. And then and I'm not just going after them because I'm just saying this only because I saw that and it's reflecting on this, and it reminded me that this unbelievable situation where Joe Biden is using a set. When he speaks from the Oval Office, he's using a set, and somebody found that out because they forgot in the background of the windows they had snow in the picture that they chose for looking out the Oval Office window, and it was snow. Well, it was obviously there was no snow there, and so they found out, and they had but again, they just, so I was thinking, man, you talk about a Truman Show. We're all being played in this kind of Truman Show. Let me go ahead and recognize more people logging in the live chat. Max Vogan, Tony Fortnite, and Constant Companion, all welcome to the show. We're talking to Cynthia Sue Larson about the holographic universe and the Mandela Effect. And now somebody wanted to do a thought experiment. And maybe you can join us on this. I don't know. But one of the classic Mandela effects that's going around is in the Bible, actually. Looks like Isaiah maybe 11:6, and it talks about the lion and the lamb. So we're going to do a little experiment here. People watching the program, if you got a Bible, because the new Mandela effect says the wolf. I think it says the wolf and
the wolf
and the lamb. Well, I never seen that. I mean, I don't know how many times there's like songs I probably sung, the lion and the lamb. I mean, and the books of there's always a lion and a lamb. And how did they turn that lion into a wolf into a lion, or vice versa? So people in the live chat, anyone who has a Bible, if you don't have one, you should have one anyway. That's a spiritual guidebook, right, Cynthia?
Right.
Look at that verse 11:6. See if it says the wolf or the lion, and just put something simple in the live chat. Does it say wolf or lion? And then maybe somebody will actually have a pre-Mandela Effect Bible. And the thing of it is, that's one of the classic ones. Another fun one. This is a fun one here, and it's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Are you aware of that one?
Well, I know of one. There may be more than one. I mean, sometimes there are several. Are you thinking about the song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. Now it says, it's a wonderful day in my neighborhood or something. It's something he completely never said. And right. In fact, we've been watching the Star Wars series because we thought, hey, did we miss out something? So we're binge watching, right? And so I wanted to see, did Darth Vader said, Luke, I am your father.
Right.
Like that, Well, he does say that.
That's James Earl Jones. But you got to say, there's nobody that can do that like James Earl Jones.
But that's been changed too. Okay, all right. Information's coming in. Cynthia is coming in on the information network. What we got here?
Yeah.
So this person says my Bible used to say a lion, and now it says wolf.
Are they? That's interesting. So they remember that for sure their own Bible used to say that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that because this is our family Bible. I know it's not like a new Bible or something.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Got another one. Wolf. Mine says wolf. Person says wolf. Looks like everybody says, but most of them, there's numbers of people saying it didn't always say that. It's been changed. And that's the thing. In fact, I think somebody just brought up that they fired up CERN today.
Yes. Friday. It was yesterday.
Was it yesterday? So
yesterday.
So many suppose, pontificate that causes a ripple in our universe, and that's where these changes are coming in. And that lion and lamb is a ripple in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So I think in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood now he actually puts on sneakers, but I remember it used to be slippers. So who changed that?
Wow. Yeah, things are definitely changing. The CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, there's a lot of energy involved when they fire that up. So I don't know that it's necessary that we have the Large Hadron Collider running in order to have Mandela effects, because I've been noticing them before.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Before that collider was running. So it seems like it's just another contributing factor, most likely. That's my take on it.
No, I agree with you. There's been a lot of changes, and that's the thing that when a person says, I know for a fact this or that, the science community quick to collapse on that kind of thinking, outside the box thinking, and said, no, you just remember it wrong. And everyone's got a mass delusion, and that one animated tale of Bernstein always said that, and he always had a tail. He didn't always, whatever.
Curious George, yeah.
Curious George, is that who he is?
The monkey. Anything at the monkey.
Hey, by the way, am I the only one that's ever seen Magilla the gorilla? Have you ever seen that show?
No. Was it American or was it Canadian?
It's a cartoon from the 70s.
The United States.
Yeah, from the United States. Okay, I feel like I'm the only one. Anybody in the live chat, have you ever seen Magilla the gorilla? I realize that's a rabbit hole that makes no sense to be asking this show, but why not? It's my show. All right. All right, Sandy, let's get back to it now. Uh, do you suggest that we could be in multiple places at the same time, living completely different lives?
Yes, and it's something that we can daydream about. Sometimes you get that feeling like you're living another life, or you might feel like you're spaced out or not all the way here. And so sometimes our consciousness does get kind of spread out that way, or you can feel like you can draw in qualities or capabilities from other lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done that where I started the drummer that was playing on the stage walked away from it was just a session with musicians kind of jamming, but it sounded weird with the drummer gone. I could still hear the drums in my head. Never
Mm-hmm.
played drums in my life before, but I could
Mm-hmm.
start feeling like my hands wanted to play the drums. I could
Mm-hmm.
hear it in my head, and I thought, what have I got to lose? So I just jumped onto the stage and started playing the drums and played through the set. It sounded fine, but then I kind of freaked out, like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly an example of it, just knowing there's another reality where I do play the drums. So I just bring that quality right in, no
Mm-hmm.
problem. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we can all do that. I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes we see this when someone lifts a car off a child. They get
Mm-hmm.
superhuman strength, and they've never had strength like that
Right.
before. And they'll make up things like they'll say, well, it was the adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
Or I just couldn't stand to see that child hurt. Okay, yeah, sure, fine, but something else is going on here.
Unless you're in Hollywood, then it's adrenochrome. So you live out in California,
Yes.
and do you say you live in on Berkeley or what?
Yeah, I came here to go to college,
Mm-hmm.
study physics at UC Berkeley. So I came and stayed. I like the climate and I
Mm-hmm.
like the scholarly atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, even here, there's quite kind of a material realist bias, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So we've
Where,
done some conferences, Foundation of Mind conferences, talking
mm-hmm.
about consciousness, and um, that's a little bit fringy. This Mandela Effect stuff is definitely considered fringe
Mm-hmm.
by most mainstream scientists.
Mm-hmm.
However, having said that, I know some physicists, and so when they have an experience that just falls outside the norm and they're having a reality shift, they're having a Mandela effect, then they come to me and tell me, like, I can't believe what just happened. But
Mm-hmm.
because it even for physicists who study quantum physics, it's very shocking to experience this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Just an aside, because I'm interested in what's going on in California from where I sit here in the middle of the United States. Are there a lot of homeless out there, encampments out there?
Yes, unfortunately, yeah, it's been that way for some time, and I think the economy seems to be making it worse. So, just seems well. I didn't plan to get into that. I
Mm.
try not to get political.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Homeless shelter is political. I just asked what's going on in California.
It's a problem. Yeah, it's a problem.
Okay. Well, I mean, so if you've got homeless people running around there, doesn't seem like they're the type that would even consider such a questions or questions that we're posing tonight here. Their basic question probably is, who's going to give me some food? Who's going to give me some cash? Or whatever. But so you moved to Berkeley from where?
Sacramento. I grew a
Oh,
suburb of
okay. So
Sacramento,
you've been
actually.
a
I was
California
born in
person.
Sacramento,
Okay.
raised in the Sacramento suburbs, and
Okay.
then came straight to Berkeley for
Mm-hmm.
college, and then stayed here.
Mm-hmm.
Except for 9 months in Switzerland. I lived in Switzerland briefly, Lausanne, the French-speaking part.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, let's get some more questions in. And one question I always like to ask the guests that when we start talking about quantum universes and holographic things is I typically mention a movie that was one of my favorite movies called Coherence. Have you ever seen it?
I think so.
It's where it's
Is
where
it like a group of people
yeah.
and they're like a dinner party thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it shows how that could play out, and this is one of the best movies I've seen. It plays this kind of multi-universe situation out that we could actually, in fact, they could actually meet their self. And years ago, I had a guest on the program. It's in one of my liners. It says the person said they time traveled, and I said, well, have you ever met yourself in the past? And they said they have, and so
I have too. Yeah.
okay, now so in your past, were you or were you somebody else?
I was me. It happened when I was about 16 years old, and I had my first boyfriend who I later became my first husband later on, and we'd exchanged little notes and letters and so forth, and I had them in my roll top desk in a kind of a concealed area. And so I'm giving this as backstory. I'd
Yeah,
gone to
that's
bed
fine.
that night, so my room, the door is shut, lights are off. I'm just in my single bed. I'm 16 years old, living at home still, and I see this sort of a glowing figure that's me. She's like me decades in the future, and she's thinking telepathically to me. For some reason, I'm talking out loud to her. So I'm just like, and I don't remember quite what I said because I was just so astonished. And she's sort of float walking from, she came out of my mirrored closet doors, out of the mirror, sort of
Whoa.
float walked through the room, which is a bit weird. And then
Yeah.
then she opened, she knew exactly where to go, what she was going for. I wasn't much registering that. Took something, which I later discovered what it was because it was missing. It was the notes, the letters. And then she was just very peaceful, very loving, very supportive. And then she went out the way she came. I'd been talking out loud, so my dad came to my bedroom door, opened it to check on me, like, "Are you all right? I heard you talking." I
Hmm.
didn't know what to say. It's like,
Wow.
uh, I guess so. And then the next morning, the letters were gone, and I could not believe that my future self had taken them. I saw it happen with my own eyes, but I couldn't believe it. It's like that can't doesn't make sense. So of course I accused my sister, like, well,
Oh.
clearly you stole stuff from my desk.
Mm. Mm.
She was outraged and said, "No, I
Mm.
didn't." And that left everything else was eliminated. So that means my future self did take those
Mm.
letters. Very interesting.
Is if a person were able to go back in time and if they altered something in the past, would they disappear?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there are lots of, I've heard reports from people seeing their future selves or parallel life selves, like driving toward them on the road, which is kind of bizarre. The same exact
Wow.
vehicle, which is quite distinctive, like a certain kind of recreational vehicle or something with something specific on the top of the car. And that's exactly them driving the other way. They'd forgotten something, so they're going back home, and then they're like, "What the heck? That was me." So there have been some really weird glitches like that.
Mm.
But I haven't seen people, I haven't yet experienced anything horrible where people just haven't been there. That's kind of the thing you seem to be bringing up here. It's like, could you be poof gone? And
Well, that
I
that's
don't
one aspect of it. What about if somebody knew what the Powerball number was going to be in the future? Could they go there, get that, and bring it back?
You could. It might not be the exact reality that you happen to be in. It's kind of like we live amidst thousands, if not millions, of parallel adjacent realities. And so, in order to be able to get a good precognition that's exactly correct for whatever timeline you're on, you need to be able to see what's going on with the timeline that you're on. And so, I know that
What
sounds
if you
kind of
can't
weird.
tell? What if you don't know what universe you're in?
Yeah. Well, most of us don't know. I mean, how would we know which universe we're in? To us,
Exactly. Right.
yeah.
How
It's
would
like
one know?
it's kind of like we need that "you are here" map, but it would be this hairball. It's like kind of like crazy. It's like the artwork behind you right now. It's like, what the heck? If I'm there, what does that mean? Like, how do I navigate through this?
Um.
So it's
Okay.
like we are through our consciousness constantly being guided to be where we most need an experience. It's like where you need to be, where you love to be, where you visualize being.
Hmm.
It has to line up.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if you're lined up, then it feels like your life is just going in that happy groove. And
Hmm.
by the way, I have heard from homeless people who have written to me with wonderful reality shifts,
Hmm.
including getting handed hot meal when they're sound asleep, like on a park bench or something, and it's really
Hmm.
cold, and the restaurants are closed. There's nothing open. They're just dreaming that it would be
Hmm.
nice to have some hot food from whatever restaurant, and
Hmm.
it's just like someone just leaves a bag of exactly that, perfectly hot and fresh from
Hmm.
the exact restaurant that's not even open at that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that happened, as well as finding money, exactly the right clothing. So homeless people, when they're living on that edge, some of them are the ultimate in practitioners of this reality
Hmm.
shifting. And
Is it more likely that for the homeless person in that condition, I guess, or station in life, is it more likely that it's because of choices they made or because of some external force did something to them?
I didn't ask the person what they thought. That would be their opinion on it. I don't know if anyone can answer that. is exactly, but to me, it looks like it's always the same thing. It's us, we're working with levels of ourself. Like, how are we? What are we learning from each moment? What are we getting out of it? Are we
Mhm.
learning, what is the opportunity here? What's the gift in any situation? So it may not seem like a situation full of gifts, but when we
Mhm.
recognize that it might be, then we get the energy because we've connected with that kind of 0 point where everything comes together. All the realities converge to basically a 0 point where everything comes from.
Yeah.
You can call it God, but atheists might be like, okay, I believe in 0 point. But it's the same thing. We get miracles
Mhm.
from God. We get all of our good things from God. And again, I'm not going to disclude the atheists.
Mhm.
They have to admit there is such a thing as 0 point, because what happens there is it's zero entropy. That means it's eternal, it's infinite, and it does exist. It's real.
Mhm.
That's absolutely real. So as long as we recognize that we're in alignment with that, we're working with it, and
Mhm.
we don't put ourselves above that, I think that's the key for humans. We tend to be prideful. So
Yeah.
it's hard not to be. We it seems like we get schooled to be self-sufficient and know what we're doing, but we don't really know what we're doing. you know
Yeah,
and we have to
yeah.
depend on others.
We're all in a journey. We're in a physical body having a spiritual experience. I guess is that what they said, or a spiritual person having a human experience. But I, I it seems to me that I read that in San Francisco, the homeless people defecating on sidewalks is so prolific that they have something called a poop app, and you can report it and find out where they're at. I'm just wondering, when you were talking there, why couldn't the homeless people go to another universe, defecate over there, and come back here? We'd have much cleaner streets. I see a positive thing to this.
Yeah, or maybe they could all have housing of some sort. There might be all kinds of good solutions. I like to ask, how good can it get, so that we can leave that wide open. Like, what would that look like? I know
Mm,
Elon Musk was suggesting Twitter headquarters could be their new
yeah.
homeless facility. It's like,
Hmm.
wow, he's a real disturber. He's
Well,
like,
yeah, he is. He definitely is upsetting the apple cart there, and the status quo, and making enemies from all around. I'm thinking people that live in those gated communities telling everybody else how to live. I notice they don't have homeless people living on their street because they don't. It's a con game. By the way, if anybody has a question for Cynthia, just put it in the live chat and we'll get that to her. I mentioned a movie, another great movie I saw related to sort of quantum universes and deja vu is the movie called Deja Vu with Denzel Washington. Have you seen that one?
I think I have. Yes,
It's
that's a
all
powerful.
it's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
It is really
actually.
awesome because it shows a framework of how that would work if we could go back in time, and I don't know, the government agents created a time machine, so to speak, and go back, and he actually he sent a message to himself through the
Right.
time machine. But what was interesting, one of the funniest parts of the show, or most intriguing, was they were showing this woman like from 5 days ago. So a machine can only see 5 days ago, exactly 5 days. And then somebody, and they said, well, they can't see you and you can't see them. They were telling Denzel Washington that. And then somebody had a laser pointer and they were pointing to the wall and they accidentally hit the screen where the woman was. And she looked around because she saw the laser pointer come through time. And he goes, I saw that. Okay, she saw it. So it's really Deja Vu is a great movie, and it's very intriguing to me what we would do had we if we had the possibility. But in talking about changing things, Cynthia, if we everyone has regrets and wish we wouldn't have done something. God, I wish I would have done that, or maybe even said that. Um, if we change that, if we went back to change that, preempt that from happening, wouldn't that still change us? I mean, doesn't the errors of our life become part of our life path?
Well, they get the things we remember that we learn from, that becomes part of how we develop our psyche, our persona, our choices, and going forward. So it's part of the fabric of who we are. And what's interesting is sometimes when we talk to friends or family and find out the events that shaped us so much are different. In other words, we remember it, but other people don't. And this
Mhm.
actually does happen. Anybody can test this when you get together with family or friends that you've known for decades and just trade stories about, do you remember this time or that time? What's the funniest thing that happened when we were together? The chances are extremely high that they're going to remember stuff and you're going to remember stuff that you don't have in common. And that is interesting because it means we've been shaped by these experiences, the ones that are so profound to each of us individually, that others are looking at us like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they'll say, you were there. And like, seriously, I was
Mm-hmm.
there because I would remember this and I
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just bad memory because some of the stuff people remember is just like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they'll tell you this changed everything. That event changed my life. And I'm like, well, how am I only hearing about this now?
Mm-hmm.
So, it does seem like we're each individually getting these opportunities. And you could say this is from God. To me, this is not some kind of a grand experiment of some programmer creating a simulation program. I know people talk about that, but I prefer to think of it like a waking dream, that this is much more like all of us waking up and coming to the realization, not that we're automatons. I don't feel like a machine. I don't think you're a
Mm-hmm.
machine. I believe
Not
that
yet.
we're good, good. Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk's Neuralink stuff.
Neuralink. That is creepy. I will grant you.
Creepy.
I will grant you
There-
that. That really kind
Yeah,
of goes back to what I said earlier, though, that all of us have good messages and we have bad messages. We have good experiences. So it just depends on what, if we can, hey, well, I'm all for Elon Musk taking over Twitter so that free speech can be returned to the internet, just because there used to be free speech and
right,
and now there's not. And so
right.
we all kind of knew that this can't last. Somebody's not going to let you say what you say. And the whole thing about free speech is to be able to say something that somebody else doesn't want to hear. Somebody's trying to wipe that universe out and say, you will only say what I want to hear. And if you don't, I mentioned being doxxed. People get doxxed because of that.
Right. Oh, I know.
Oh, here's a turnabout fair. Is that what it's called? Turnabout fair play.
Yeah.
I think is this reporter from the Washington Post was, and I'm not meaning this for a political slant, but um, it's sort of, well, let me just put it out there. She was complaining and crying that she was doxxed, and she says it's horrible, and she can't believe it. And then she went to this woman who has this Twitter channel, and I think it's called Libs of TikTok or something. All this woman does is put videos that somebody else has put out there. They're already out there. They're either on Facebook or they're on Twitter or they're YouTube. All she does is just take them and put them in a channel. You think, well,
Yeah.
if they've already said it, why would those people be concerned? Well, this Washington Post reporter wanted to get, so she went, the Washington Post reporter was crying that she got doxxed and outed, and she was crying. It's like, what kind of weirdo are you? But she went to the woman and found out who her family was, and they got exposed, and now they had to go underground. She did exactly what she says she can't stand, which people didn't do. And so,
Wow.
it's a Wild West show out there, and I'm just thinking, what's the word I'm looking for when it comes back around? John
Oh,
Lennon,
yeah. It's karma.
karma, yeah,
Yeah.
John Lennon, the great prophet John Lennon. Instant karma is going to get you, going to smack you right in the face. So that's. I don't know,
Yeah.
man. You get prophets. Speaking of the Beatles, man, is Paul McCartney really alive? Is that him, or is that somebody else?
I don't know him personally, and I know about the controversy, so that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are people who would say that is Paul McCartney, and then I know that there are people who say no, his ears are different. We can explain that there was a big switcheroo,
Mm-hmm.
but it could also be a quantum shift too. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, he
Yeah.
does seem slightly different than he used to be, but he also seems like he's got characteristics. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You know what'll happen if people play this interview backwards?
Right?
It's going to say I buried Paul. So I'm just saying that's the kind of universe that I live in, Cynthia. Okay, we've talked about the Mandela effect, and we're talking about this from the very first. I mentioned the dawn of this new quantum age. What makes this a quantum age? What makes this new? Isn't this a repeat of the old, and we just forgotten human history?
Well, it's technology. Just like we left the Stone Age, the stone tools that we were using as primary implements moved into the bronze, and then from the bronze we got new and improved tools. And I think people would call the information age our most recent time because it's all about bits and bytes on computers. But now we really have moved out of the binary, the processing, the bits and bytes are very binary. That's yes, no, off, on kind of technology. Quantum technology is really starting to work with quantum qubits. So that's where you've got entanglement happening. So instead of
Hmm.
just one little bit or byte working, you've got an entangled group or a cluster of these coordinated possible realities where the quantum computing computational power has the capacity to start solving problems at very large levels that
Hmm.
were previously untouchable by our pre.
Is the Stone Age before or after the creation of gigantic monoliths that appear all around the world and sometimes miles underneath the ocean? Was that before or after that period?
Those are good questions. Seems like those monoliths go way back, you know. And then when you look at the what I love where you're going with this because you start looking at like how did they build these monoliths? And the farther back in time you go, like in Egypt, it starts looking like they had some incredible technology, almost like lasers or something, to be cutting stone so smoothly and
Hmm.
melting it and stuff. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, what's with that? Because that's not stone tools. So
Right.
our official history is a little bit off, but not if you look at indigenous history, because the indigenous First Nations people, they start talking, their history is verbal usually, and it matches like what's in the Bible. They'll talk about things like there was a great flood, and you know that was real. That really did wipe out quite a lot of life, and they will talk about how we're in the fourth world, we're going into the fifth. That's a little different than the Bible, but there's still a lot of validation and confirmation, which is quite interesting.
Mhm. I think most civilizations around the world talk about a worldwide cataclysmic flood event, and I think there's evidence all around the world that such an event happened. I mean, I'm always fascinated if you go out in the Arizona desert and you can get seashells and stuff, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, I mean, I don't like. I feel like you get back to the Truman Show that our educational system is like a Truman Show. They give you a nice box of information, but they really don't. While they do say, particularly at a college level, we want you to express yourself and to think out of the box and to do this. But even there, if you're thinking outside the box, they don't like, they'll rein you back in, and you'll be
Right.
ostracized for doing exactly what they say. So it's really not that. It's really like you think freely as long as you're thinking like us, the hive mentality, and this is a topic here to be considered one of them. There wasn't any pre flood civilization create, I mean, anybody with an axe and a hammer can build 100-ton precision blocks and build a pyramid. I mean, come on.
Excuse me.
And we're supposed to, they make these ridiculous things and say it's like the king has no clothes. Hey, just believe that. Wait a minute, man. I thought I'm supposed to use my intellect here. My intellect says something's up here, and so I've always kind of been against the grain of that. In fact, when the information comes to me, first thing I do, I believe the opposite of what I'm hearing, and
Right.
then work my way back. Because if what they're saying, what's coming to me is true, then I can work my way back and find out the foundations to that truth. But
That's
if I
true
agree with that
skepticism.
truth,
Yeah.
if I agree with that truth, I'm in a village. I'm in the village, man. Like Peter McGowan was back in the '60s, called the village. Where it's called the prisoner, and he was in there and he didn't know. It took him a while to find out he was a prisoner in this village, and I don't want to be in that village. I don't want somebody to create a universal and this thing about Freakerberg or Backerberg or Bilderberg was Zuckerberg trying to get everybody to be. You talk about the Neuralink. He's trying to get everybody with 3D glasses. He wants everybody to stay in their house and have a virtual life with some 3D glasses and stuff. I'm not making that up. He
Yeah,
wants
I
to
know.
create a life for people like he's God in this kind of digital universe. Man, that's some scary stuff. I would not enter into that universe at all.
Absolutely.
That's
I'm
one
with you
universe I
there.
stay out of.
I'm glad you encourage critical thinking, and I'm very much not a transhumanist. I go the other direction toward, I even came up with a word, so we have one, rev humanism, which is just really revitalizing, returning, really connecting with Earth, with each other, true relationships, authenticity, just genuine people being with
Mhm.
each other. So it's true, connections all together. We really need that, and it's always here. When you look at the Bible, then that's what Jesus is talking about. It's very much a spiritual path. And this transhumanist stuff, like getting in. I don't even want to say what Zuckerberg is creating. I'm not a fan of it either.
Mhm.
So I think it's just very. It could be. A, it's addictive once for
Mhm.
some people
Yeah.
because it's very attractive and it appeals to some of the
I'll give
vices
you I'll
or
give you an
yeah.
example that I checked out of that world of Facebook. I don't know how many thousands. I may have maxed out on that
Right.
situation, but anyway, I wanted to get out of that. I just didn't like the control mechanisms.
No.
I didn't like the overlays to reveal content. Click here, or
Mm,
here's a message. Go here before you read what this person says. So anyway, whatever thousands of friends I had, well, I just left Facebook. I just left. Well, anybody knows me
right.
knows I have this show, and I've had this show since 2003. Not a single virtual friend or whoever the hell they were tried to contact me and say, "Where'd you go?"
Wow.
And you would think that, I'm kind of out there. I've kind of got some public notoriety, at least at my level. I'm not anybody. I'm not saying any better than anybody. I got a face. I got a presence. I got an internet presence. Put it that way, right?
Right.
Not nearly as big as most people, but still, I had all those people, and then I checked out. So I kind of learned a lesson of that little like that you get that gives you that little hit, that dopamine or whatever it is, it's not real, and it takes away from your real life. And really, I've opened up more time for real life since I got off of that than I got off Twitter. So man, that worked pretty good, man. I'm gonna get off Twitter. Same thing. Nobody from Twitter said, hey, what up, Big D? Where you at, brah? And nobody saying, where you at, brah? Nobody. I said, well, for one, I'm not wearing a bra, but whatever. I'm not on there, So,
Right.
but the further I get away from social media, the happier I am, and the less news I consume, the happier I am. I feel like everyone and people watching the program, man, we just need to, and you're doing it, is trying to make a difference. However, you can make a difference. Somebody said, this quantum universe stuff and the guest website is reality shift. I don't do that, whatever. Well, that's because she's doing it. That's the vehicle that you're using to try to make a difference. You're trying to make a difference. I'm not saying everything you say is correct. Neither what I say is correct 100% either. But everyone has a gift in the live chat, and I'm saying everyone needs to try to make a difference back to, you're saying, and I like what you said about getting back to human relationships, getting back to
Right.
people
Right.
and out of this metaverse of doom. I think it's, and what is that? They call them Facebook meta. What is that? That's it sounds like a little shifty little deal there. I don't like that. I don't like anything that people are doing.
It's an attempt to move people into that transhumanist kind of a false reality, and by inviting them in, like, come on in, and you can buy your way in. The whole thing just seems like some false, creepy carnival. I don't like the feeling of it, but I'm not really into the alternate reality thing. I know a lot of people are into
Mhm.
gaming, and so I think it's supposed to be attractive to gamers, supposedly,
How is that
but
a thing? How is gamers a thing? Won't they get a job? I mean, won't they go outside? It just kills me when I go camping or something and see little kids walking around with a cell phone. I hate that. I wish the parents would say, this ain't happening here. You put your foot down, man. Let them see a daggone butterfly somewhere, or try to catch a fish or do something. Look for a Bigfoot. There's Bigfoot out there. Why not look for them?
right. Yeah, kids need time away from those devices, and the people that are creating those systems don't let their children use them. The
Mhm.
Zuckerbergs of the world
You
that,
talk about human relations, Cynthia. That's
right.
some
Yeah.
really terrible stuff has happened during the lockdown. They said to kids because they missed out on interaction with other kids, which is at the critical moment of their development. And I got a
Right.
feeling there's going to be some severe development conditions here as a result. And I don't know if they're still doing it. And to think about mask, and I don't, again, I got to put that out there just because I'm trying to get back to human. But
Yeah.
if a child can't see a reaction, a
Right.
smile, that's how we as human beings react, communicate, and it's not always talk. It's visual, and you need those things. You need the assurance. Take that away, and what do you got? You got a confused child who's just being abused, really, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. Yeah. No,
I'm
I'm
better
with
now.
you there. No, yeah, I agree. And it seems like there are some terrible things happening. Back to what you were saying earlier about not being able to say certain things. I've actually been shut out of Facebook for a couple of months in the
Yeah.
last year. There were two different 1 month periods where I was unable to post,
What
and
did
so
you
these
do?
corporations have the ability, yeah, because I'm thinking outside the box, and I'm critical thinker. So I'm
Hmm.
asking things, looking at things, supporting people who the powers that be have decided are not part of their team.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's very easy for these things to happen and very
Hmm.
easy to end up on the outsider side of things.
Hmm.
And so I think the big challenge in these times for me personally is how do I bring some of the things I'm finding through critical thinking, some of the things you're touching on, some things we haven't even talked about, but they're right there and they affect all of us and they have to do with our health, our well being, our safety. How
Hmm.
can we, when we find out these things and we know that we can visualize a better future, how can we present these things in a way
Hmm.
that can reach everybody that could hear it, but is being prevented from hearing it because they're
Hmm.
getting this other message. They're getting bombarded with it, as you know, from
Yeah. Well, I don't want to miss anything. Is there a topic that you came prepared and wanted to talk about? Let's get into it.
Well, yeah, basically the Mandela effect is kind of the big thing for how we can all collectively, as a community, start steering spaceship Earth. How can we collectively choose timelines? What's really going on? And so I'm part of something called the International Mandela Effect Conference, and
Wow.
we'll have a live stream next Wednesday. That's Wednesday. I don't have the date in front of me. What is today? The 23rd. So 4, 5, 6, the 7th. So it'll be April 27th, starting at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. The channel is International Mandela Effect Conference Channel. Our guest will be Chad from Open Your Reality, and we'll be talking about, we always start by talking about Lazarus species. These are extinct animals that are coming back, that kind of thing. So we love to cover like some of the good news that's happening around the planet. The Mandela effect is basically showing us that there might be something you could call a golden timeline that's there for all of us. So no matter how bad things may look, this is the whole point of quantum jumping and reality shifting. And I think it's a point of spirituality. No matter what things look like, basically miracles are always possible. And
Hmm.
so what we do collectively with the International Mandela Effect Conference is we'll be bringing on this guest Chad. He'll talk about his theories. He likes to talk about simulation theory and spirituality, bring it together. He's a big follower of Tom Campbell, and we've had Tom Campbell on the show. So
Hmm.
the reason I'm bringing all this up is because no matter where people are, I think sometimes we feel cut off, we feel disempowered, we feel frustrated, we feel like everything that, like, gosh, they're listening and they're saying, gosh, Daniel's right, Cynthia's right, this is terrible, but what can we do about it? And what we can do is recognize that collectively we can change literally everything.
Hmm. Well, I will agree with you on that. The good book says that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and that the tongue can set on fire the course of nature. What a profound statement that the tongue has that power. Our words have power. So maybe if we speak life, then we shall get life. If we speak words of death, then we shall get that too as well. So it right there, if somebody that's watching this program say, "Man, I can't stand my life so bad, whatever," I would say, at least from that standpoint, if you're not doing what Cynthia is saying, then I mean, which doesn't sound like we're too far of disagreement there. That you can speak. The Bible says you can speak
Yes.
your a new existence into your life,
Yes.
and the power of the tongue is sets on fire the course of nature. That's a pretty powerful statement right there. So I think we need to guard our thoughts and intents of our what we speak and make sure that we are speaking life. Because it seems like the natural human response, and I think it's trained from our bringing up and from the forces that can try to control us. Our natural response is usually kind of negative. Somebody cuts in front of you, they're liable to get the bird or get cussed at, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's, you get your fries a little late. Your fries don't come with your hamburger. Okay, no, that's the end of the world right there, ain't it? Well, somebody's going to hear about that, ain't they? So, I just, what? And by the way, speaking of that, I was going to a barbecue with the wife and a barbecue place with the wife, and I said we're going to get a free cake. It just came to my head. We're going to get a free cake. Now that's such a bizarre thing that I don't even know why I said it. Now you
Right.
know where I'm going, right? We got there, and the waiter said, "Hey, how would you like a free cake?" I kid you not. So I don't. But now there, did I speak that into existence? Or did I align my thoughts? Did I tune in to a future timeline hours away? Was I able to tag into that somehow?
Both. It's a handshake. You're basically saying, I feel like that's right there. I feel an adjacent reality. And the adjacent reality is, yep, you got it. So you're speaking it into reality, but you're also feeling it's there. So you're feeling it's almost like someone's broadcasting from some reality. Anybody want free cake? Come over here right now if you want it. And like, yes. And you're speaking into being because you can kind of hear it. And this is the intuition that we're constantly using with one another. We totally are jumping between realities all the time, and it doesn't feel like you went from one world to another.
How do you respond to a scientist, a naturalist who says that's not your premonition? You're not having premonitions. You're having a chemical reaction, a biological reaction, and your synapses are firing in a certain order, convincing you that there's some spiritual event happening. How do you respond to people that believe that they're all that there is, that it's not nothing, it's not any kind of supernatural thing or other dimensional thing, or it's all for like the near death experience? They say, well, you see a tunnel because this chemical's over here and you're dying, and so it's injecting something over here, and so your brain's seeing that as a light. It's like, come on, man, stop that. Yeah. How do you know that? Yeah. Were you there? But anyway, how do you explain to somebody that there might be, a sort of a scientific mind, a factual mind who can't get this, what we're talking about?
Well, I did write my book, Quantum Jumps, for such conversation. It starts off very much focused on the way that we tend to come from this place of left brain thinking. We're very rational. We're very analytical. We want to understand things, maybe like the placebo effect. Is there a science behind it? So I present the science behind things like photosynthesis, and there are quantum processes that nature uses all the time. And it basically starts indicating sort of a path or a road, that there's something going on that's not simply material realism, but it's being driven by underlying consciousness everywhere, for ourselves, for plants, for animals, when we're healing with the placebo effect, all of these things. As far as convincing someone, the best luck I've had is my family, because I think people who are close to me, they're going to see it all the time. Because they're with me. And so I've had interesting conversations with my parents, my sister, just describing, like, remember when this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. It's basically miracle, 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 miracle. And then my dad, he started off as an atheist. I think probably I've had a big impact on his life, because now he doesn't call himself an atheist. He says he's agnostic. He's witnessed so many miracles, including my grandmother's liver cancer vanishing, which she credited to God. And she was very close with Jesus. So just miracle after miracle after miracle. But if people aren't witnessing that, it's really hard. But now my family on several occasions has said, Cynthia, can you just do that thing you do? Meaning, can you basically bring about a miracle because our dishwasher is broken or what have you? And it makes me laugh and smile. And I like that respect. But that's only because they've witnessed it for decades around me. And so I think if people aren't seeing that and getting that constant experience, that there's another way to embrace the world, that there is this truth that Jesus spoke of, that he had that faith, that he could walk on water. And I believe all those miracles. I believe those miracles. To me, those are not some storybook tale. That's real. And I think they're important because they challenge us to kind of blow our rational analytical mind. We need that so much. I think we need it now more than ever.
I would agree with you 100%. Like I say, the mind is, in fact, the Bible had a comment on the mind too. It says that the mind cannot know God. It is enmity against God. God can't be known with the carnal mind. You can't think in God. And that's the thing that people said, well, how is it that God came into the consciousness of mankind unless God put it there? Because there's nothing in nature that says there's a God. Although to another scripture it says nature declares there is a God. Yes. But so back in the day, where's their frame of reference? They see a tree. Well, they figure, well, the tree's always been there. Whatever. So they don't. They're not. The mind isn't subject to the laws of God. It can't know it. But something externally had to come in, and like an aha moment of some kind of revelation, some kind of moment said that tree was designed, it was put there by an unseen power. And then from there, we have the mankind's quest to know spiritual matters, and have been talking about it for as long as we've been on the planet. So, but the mind is always trying to block us, like I said earlier, from those advancements of the heart or of faith, or of trying to change the situation by how we speak out, things like that. So I think we need to exercise those sort of gifts, those sort of thoughts. And if somebody wants to communicate with me and they meet me out in the street, I'll know in 10 seconds or maybe a minute. How about a minute? If it's a dead hole, if it's because I'll hear from them. I'll get, hey, weather's great. Okay, good. Okay. Hey, they got to sell at Walmart. I think I told a previous guest this the other day. I said, I don't want to know about Walmart. And I don't want to know about taxes going up. I know the gas prices are outrageous. Right. If I and you can say that, but if somewhere along the conversation, you don't say, you know what, man, I had this feeling the other day, this deja vu. If I don't hear nothing like that, it's like I'm busy, because I'm looking for that kind of thing. I'm looking for those gems, those jewels that move us spiritually ahead. And talking about the situations of the earth, the earthly sort of things, we all have to deal with them, but we're not going to get anywhere unless we start moving and questioning and exploring, the sort of higher realms.
Right. I like to ask that question, how good can it get? And it has that, it might sound very material, it might sound very earthly, but ultimately to me, that's a spiritual invitation and it's a spiritual invocation. It's to say, how good can everything get? How good can I get? How God can everything get? How God can I get? It's really acknowledging that there is this ultimate, absolute consciousness, this presence of so much love that is so much greater than anything that any one of us could grasp at any, in its totality. It's more than our brains can handle. Like you said, it's so much more. And I think it's our pride that leads us to think that our sciences can be comprehensive and that we can find our way out of the problems we've made with more so-called advances in technology that have not been necessarily well thought out. I'm not going to get into specifics, but we have a lot of examples.
Do you think there's a universal truth that anyone who lands on it, that universal truth, whatever it may be, is 100% truth, and that there can, for anybody that would see that, no matter how many opposing opinions they've had about other matters, you think if there is a truth that everyone would know that there is truth? Because I've heard people say, and maybe you said, I don't know, what is your truth? Your truth and it's not my truth. Well, I'm asking the question, is there a truth that is irrefutable, that crosses all the strata, all the bounds, all the belief systems, that there is a truth?
Well, that's a good question. And this gets into philosophy. And my favorite philosophical book currently is called Axiogenesis by Nicholas Rescher. And he's a process philosopher. And what he's getting at is, why is there anything at all? Philosophers do this. It would be like a philosopher question would be, is there an absolute truth? And if there is, what is it? Nicholas Rescher's book, Axiogenesis, is all based on that question. Why is there anything at all? And when I read that book, to me, I come away with this feeling like God. To me, it's a book about God. That's how I read it. I know it doesn't say it's about God, but it's all about goodness. And it's basically saying that there is this ultimate consciousness. There has to be. And so I think if anybody's thinking about it, why is there anything at all? Maybe we wouldn't think that we agree that that's because there's God. But I think if you think about it the way a philosopher does, then there you are. I think it's a brilliant book. So
okay, all right. Let's kind of sort of finish the show with the questions. We've got a number of questions coming in, so let's get these in here, and because there's a number of them. So, all right. Put Yahweh first says, since we are energy, how many volts do we put out?
Oh gosh. Well, this is a good question, and I don't know the answer.
I do, because I watched The Matrix, and The Matrix.
Oh, nice. Yes.
The Matrix said that we put out
little batteries.
A little battery, a 1.5 volt. All right. Here's another question: is the Mandela effect caused by the powers that be use time travel technologies to change things in the past?
I believe we all have access to the Mandela effect, so it's ours. Let's grab hold of that. And the I think that the elites and the powers that be would love to get control over it, but that's going to be out of their hands. So it's kind of similar to that feeling in the Matrix where Neo recognizes like, wow, we can do this. So I think we can all come together and start changing reality, make a reality that we would most like to see together.
Okay. And this is from Jade, our moderator. Is quantum entanglement a danger to the population as scientists are still learning and they don't know how to untangle them?
You mean in a computer environment, hopefully is what they're talking about. Well, there's always a danger when technology first starts out because, like we've been saying through this whole show, humans have pride. We often forget that we're actually would be better off remembering that God exists and that we can work together. That would be good to remember that. And also keep blessings and prayers when we do science. Very seldom do we do that. So is there a danger? Probably. But good news, because there are so many of us that know that God is the greatest that there is, because we know that, and it doesn't matter what things may look like within this field of entanglement. That means entanglement with me, with everybody else who shares that sense of spirituality. We together collectively are entangled as well. So if there is something that's about to go wrong with whatever technology, it's okay.
The American Indian said life is a web, and what you do to the web, you do to yourself. Right. All right. Rose says, is quantum jumping the same thing as time travel or teleportation? What's the difference?
Well, it includes things like time travel. I've got examples of teleportation in the book Quantum Jumps where people have basically teleported. In some places, young children were teleporting all over this small village in Italy. In another place, someone teleported across the earth. So there have been reports of teleportation. Time travel can also happen. It seems like that one doesn't seem to happen. It's not reported as often, not yet, but I've heard a lot of reports and I've been documenting it on my Reality Shifters website for more than 20 years. There's a whole time shift page on that website going into all kinds of things, everything from time loops, time travel, you name it. So it's a huge, fascinating aspect to this whole phenomenon.
Okay. Did some bad people or evil forces put us in some alternate timeline that we don't belong in?
Well, they might try to do that. It may be that has in one reality stream occurred. And I actually feel like I've got memories of coming from a dystopian possible future 500 years from now. So I feel like I'm a time traveler. So I feel like that's inspired quite a bit of my work. In fact, that I would like to make sure that we do not ever make artificial intelligence our golden idol in any way, shape, or form. It should only be a partner. It should never be something that we think, oh, let's just hand it all over to that. Definitely not. So, so if such a thing is possible, and I think it is, then don't worry because people like me have already been there, seen it, and we're back to change it. So the game is already in play.
Well, now some people would believe we live in a dystopian future right now.
I know.
I would concur. There's some evidence for that. I'm still evaluating the evidence. All right. Bear from our Bear report says, is consciousness the only thing that is real? Good question.
Yeah. When you talk about what is real, what is that? And I would say that to me, consciousness is the only thing that is real. But we get into problems when we try to define either one of those two words, consciousness and reality. But I think your listeners are very educated and they're definitely out of the box thinkers. So then you can understand
that's another Matrix quote where Morpheus says, welcome to the real. Now the real was a blown up world, and maybe it could be good that we're not living in a world that I think has been created for us to live in, and that they're going to plug us in and make it like, hey, we got little birds flying around, and it's just wonderful. All right. when they convince you that $6-7 a gallon gas is great and you should be happy, or if you don't have a job, you should be happy. Then, in fact, some people say, hey, you shouldn't even own anything. So, be glad that you can't buy nothing. The shelves are empty. All right. We got this. Smoke C says, Cynthia, how can human lives on spirit live? How can humans live on spirit alone and go without food or water?
Well, I've not met someone that does that, but I've heard they exist. So I don't know.
I tried to get a guest on there. I found a guy who says he eats air,
Right.
but he died, so I couldn't get him on the show.
Oh man, that
Go
would have been
figure. I
interesting.
guess he had some bad air, man.
But the thinking of it comes from this zero entropy point, which is God. And basically, if you draw all your strength directly from zero entropy, which has no time, it's timeless, it's eternal, it's infinite. So it's right there at the pinnacle. And
Hmm.
if you're constantly in touch with that you can draw all your strength, energy, and vitality, maybe it's possible.
Hmm.
I don't think humans are set up naturally to do that. So it would take some kind of natural, skill set that maybe some of the ancient yogis have developed. It's the kind of thing you might hear about from yogis and Tibetan
Hmm.
Buddhist monks and so forth. So
Yeah,
some people may
yeah.
attain that.
I think some people have been watching Yogi Bear instead of talking to the actual yogi. Believe
Right.
says, how can you convince someone about the Mandela effect is real?
Well, that's a tough one. I would caution against trying to convince anyone. Don't do a hard sale. Do a soft sell. So just basically ask questions,
Hmm.
and even then, they may be basically admitting that they're noticing Mandela effects, but they may not be ready to be admitting it.
Hmm.
So I know
Yeah,
that sounds
what I've
weird.
done, is
Yeah.
I've used the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Hey, I said, hey man, I want to sing a song. You sing it with me, and I'll go like this. What's that first line? It's a wonderful, it's wonderful, and I'll play like that, and they'll go, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. And they go, yeah, that's. I said, what? That's not what it says now. It says it's a wonderful day in that neighborhood. What, wait a minute. Nobody remembers that. Okay. It was always, it's a wonderful day. Anyway, so I've got people to kind of think, huh? I guess
Well,
so.
I've tried that with martial artists about the kidneys. I ask them, "Where's the kidney punch?" Because they're martial artists, right? So they
Mhm.
they know that. The place that you don't strike because if you do, they might urinate blood and then they might die. And the martial artists all know where that is. Like, show me where the kidneys
Mhm.
are. So they put their hands on their lower back,
Mhm.
and then I say, "Well, guess what? Kidneys aren't there anymore." And then they say, "What? What are you talking about?" Like, go ahead and check it yourself. Look where
Mhm.
the kidneys are.
Mhm.
They've moved up. They're under the rib cage. They're in relative safety right now.
Wow.
Like, no way. Yes way. So, but
Way.
but but even when I do that, if they're not ready to get the whole concept, then
Mhm.
they're just not ready. So be gentle with people. If they're not ready, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, here we're back in the matrix. Some people are not ready to be unplugged yet. And I feel sorry for them. Another fun one I got. Anybody in the live chat, you can do this anytime. How many buildings collapsed in 9/11?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Do you know? Do you know?
The actual number, 9/11 is so weird. So many bizarre things happened that day. Like, do
Mm-hmm.
you know there was an offshore tornado that was happening
Mm-hmm.
that was due to strike the city of New York? I don't remember that. That was like, what? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with, but you could ask people in the chat to type it in too. See what people say.
Wait. You're not going to answer the question?
Well, I remember that the two towers, and then
Okay.
there's
Okay.
building
Good.
seven.
Very good.
Yeah.
So how many?
It seems like three would be what people would say, that by remembering those.
Okay. All right. And Max says, how do you achieve total consciousness?
Wow. Well, that's like enlightenment, right? Total consciousness
Ooh,
would be hitting that zero
nirvana
point
right
zero
there.
entropy point. Yeah. I think practice with spiritual or meditative practice regularly. Basically, get out of your ego. So try not to be making it like I have to do this by such and such a date and time. Leave it to God. So, if this happens, great. Be humble and make it just make the practice the thing. Make your spiritual path your thing. That's how
So,
that's how I'd recommend it.
I asked the question, how many buildings went down? Somebody said all of them. Well, see,
Love it.
that shows you they're living in some kind of weird universe right there. Are the purveyors of today's transhumanism time travelers from the future?
Oh wow, interesting question. That would really be kind of creepy, right? It's
It can
possible.
happen.
Yeah, it can happen.
Depends on what
I
timeline you're on.
I'm not a fan of that transhumanism. You already know how I stand on that, and
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm from the future. I feel like I've seen a nightmare, so I feel like I've come back to say, you know what, dudes, let's not do that. Let's seriously not do that. Let's
Hmm.
absolutely not do that. But
That reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean, where when the woman was on the ship and the ghost captain says, Do you believe in nightmares? I hope so, because you're in one. All right. Let's get to another question. How do you jump to another timeline?
Okay, well, basically, you want to be all aligned. I mentioned that briefly. So you want to make sure that what you need is what you love, is what you want. That's all of yourself, your gut, your heart, your head, all of one piece. So you're not doing mutiny on the Bounty with the crew going one way and, the captain another.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we lead our lives that way. We tell ourselves, I want the steady 9 to 5 job. I want what everybody tells me on TV I should want, but you don't really want that. So
No.
you need to kind of learn what you really
Isn't
need.
that interesting?
What
Isn't
you
that
really,
interesting?
yeah.
Why does somebody like Pepsi over Coke? They're the same
Yeah.
person. It's crazy. Our taste have been programmed. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of programming going on here. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a time when the Marlboro man was the guy all those guys wanted to be. I got the hat, might as well get a cigarette too, be a Marlboro man. That was marketed. So how much do we know and what we believe is our own self?
Well, I love what you're doing. I love that what you described your process. You to hear anything that is presented and you flip it around. I love it. I talk about something like that in my book, Reality Shifts, where question everything. You really want to remove all your beliefs. You want to unplug like crazy and get it all the way unplugged and then start over, start clean. And most of us don't do that to the point that we can get that clear. But this is so important when you're quantum jumping to get really to that place of law alignment. So you're not fake, you're not trying to do something that you've been programmed to do, but instead you're authentic, you're on task with what your spiritual intent is. You feel like you're really present. What you really care about is what you really care about. And then with that, this opens up a tremendous amount of energy. So you need energy to make a quantum jump. The quantum jump would be maybe you're sick with some disease and it's incurable, and the doctors tell you that, but pretty much anything can change. And so when you've got a need and you've got the feeling of love for yourself and for mankind, and you're hooking up with this energy source, I would recommend God. That is the ultimate energy source. So I would totally recommend that approach. Just feel like if you believe in God, that's so much easier. This is the science of miracles then. And what you're doing with quantum jumps is you're just recognizing, I'm going to act as if I've made that jump, and I'm going to have faith. And I'm going to know that because I need it, because I love it, because I want it, and because I'm going to be in service in some way, there's a reciprocity here. It's feeling like I will be contributing. I'll be helping people. Then you got it. Whatever it is, as long as it's something you truly need, then you're not lying to yourself. And it's something that you
And that's the
genuinely
thing we
love,
don't want to do.
and it's authentic. Yeah.
If we're going to
This is
lie
the
to
key.
people, at least don't lie to yourself.
Yeah, don't. But it's like what you said. People, they hear the programming and they absorb it like sponges, and then you have to rip that stuff out and realize that's not me. That's not who I really am.
As a well of movie quotes that I am, another thought talking about hesitating before you internalize especially if all the system is telling you the same thing. If the religious, educational, governmental, philosophers, big business, if they're all telling you the same thing, that's a warning sign right there. Because there's a Borg out there, there's a collective out there, and they want us all to be a part of it. I want to be a free human being as long as I could possibly be. But the quote is from the outlaw Josie Wells. I learned a truism from that movie. There's this snake oil salesman in the Old West, and he's got this snake oil, and he's selling it to people. And he talks to this Indian. His name's Dan George in real life. I think it was Lone Wadi in the movie. And he goes, hey, you're an Indian. Why don't you try some of this elixir here, this snake oil or whatever? And in a amazing just response, he said, what's in it? And the salesman says, he was startled. Somebody asked him, what's in it? He said, I don't know. I'm just a salesman. And then he goes, well, you drink it. And that was a phenomenal statement. And so somebody told me to take a certain medicine, and I asked them the same question. What's in it? Well, what they tell me is shut up. Well, shut up is not an ingredient.
No.
Being banned is not an ingredient. I just said merely, what's in it? And
Right.
if you're not going to tell me, then you take it and get back to me, okay? I learned that from Lone Wadi, man, and Outlaw Josie Wales. All right. Hey, final question looks like before we have to go here. Is Kim Jennings a time traveler?
I don't know, Kim. Tell me more. Who is this?
Isn't he the winningest person on Jeopardy? I don't know. Is that somebody?
Oh, right. Okay.
I don't know, but I've heard that before. Anybody got any other information on that? Because I don't know, but I have heard something about time travel on that. So,
Oh, it's possible. I think a lot of people have this capability, so it's more common, more prevalent than people realize. It's part of our makeup. We travel through space. We don't think much of it. We're all time travelers in the sense that we remember things in the past.
hmm
We can imagine things in the future. We can have future memories that actually come true. So we all have access to time travel, much more than we realize. So is that person a time traveler? It's possible. And they might even know that they can kind of browse through all these realities and keep picking the one where I'm going to win again. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Cynthia Sue Larson, we're at the end of the broadcast. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to tell people how to get your book or anything about your website? You go right ahead.
Yeah, please sign up for my newsletter if you're feeling so inspired. It's realityshifters.com. I never sell the list to anybody, and it's a monthly newsletter that just shares firsthand reports of these kinds of experiences we're talking about and whatever else has happened in the previous month. And you can always find out how to access me and reach me through all these social media things that I'm allowed to access, the ones that haven't shut me out. And
Wow.
that's accessible through realityshifters.com. And my books are there too. And I think you've been doing such a great job. Thank you, Daniel, for everything you're doing. And together with all of us, I'm just liking to ask that question: how good can it get, no matter what it looks like, for all
Well,
for all of us?
that's a positive way to look at it, rather than how bad it can get, which is the exact opposite. Somebody's telling you,
Yes.
man, you not believe how bad it is, and I'm going to respond, well, how good can it get?
Yes, you got it.
Victory is ours. We're claiming victory tonight. And with that,
Absolutely.
Cynthia, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'll send you links when we upload and edit.
Thank you.